So today I'm going to walk you through a power building workout. So a lot has changed with my training, mainly because I'm going for nationals in BC, Vancouver. A lot has had to change because my training was very hypertrophy focused / not a lot of stability components. So I added in a lot of movements that are like bro science. So really what allowed me to do is to kind of tolerate a little bit more for my spinal erectors. And so let's run this back day. I'm going to start things off with the deadlift. I'm deloading right now in this video, so I'm doing 605 for a triple. But then again, like deadlifting at this gym, it's a lot more difficult. I have a theory that the plates I'm using are ruined in the middle, the centerpiece, and so they slant and it feels more like a deficit deadlift. The positioning definitely feels off the bottom. Not a huge fan of deadlifting at a gym that doesn't have solid plates. Now, as for back downs, I'm doing a 565 slow eccentric release deadlift at the top. So it's a normal deadlift on the way up, and it's a slow release. I started doing this accessory recently because I want to build up my posterior chain. It mimics essence of an RDL, and I find it's a really good movement to kind of engage the glutes, the hamstrings, posterior chain, especially if you're a rounded back deadlifter like myself. And it definitely gets everything firing up, which is something I really appreciate in my training because, again, as a rounded back deadlifter, sometimes you tend to cheat the hamstrings out. But if you also have a weak lockout, it's great movement to expose yourself to your weak point. Next, we have the weighted pull-up. This movement, I'm kind of protracting forward. As you can see, I'm rounded forward, crunch forward, really engaging the teres major on these. So I treat these movements kind of like the stability aspect, where it requires some core. I'm trying to stay strict with this and to keep my core engaged. But yeah, that's something I started adding into my training is, despite it not being the best hypertrophy movement, it's a great movement to build coordination. It's fun, it looks cool, you feel like a beast doing it, and ultimately, if you don't enjoy the movements that you're doing in the gym, this movement I definitely enjoy, what's the point? It's still benefiting the back. It might not be the best lat builder. Now, after weighted pull-ups, I moved on to some heavy T-bar rows. This set was definitely too heavy for myself. As you can see, I barely got the first rep. Nearly any of these reps counted, which is why I did a drop set right after. But I started doing the T-bar row again, despite it being not a super optimal hypertrophy workout for the back, because it forces you into a deadlift-like position, which puts a lot of work and stimulus to the hamstring, the glutes, and even the lower back, which I definitely feels like helps out my deadlift and squat for the lower back without actually having to do more specific lower back movements like a hyperextension or anything, which are obviously good too. But this is good because I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone. Now, I'm not a huge advocate of always doing drop sets or even top sets back downs for accessory work, but for movements where I don't feel super familiar with, I'll do this mainly just to make sure that I'm feeling the movement. And then over the scheme of like 2 or 3 weeks, I'll make top sets and back downs, drop sets into straight sets. And this I'll do for isolations, accessories, until I get very comfortable with the movement. Then I'll start experimenting with ramp up sets or tops and back downs again. And so with training, you have to realize that it's a constant process of not being used to something, then adapting to something, trying to readapt back and forth so that you make gains. You don't have to make drastic changes, but there should be some sort of variable that's changing to making training more enjoyable so that the training intent is there and you can make continual progress. Now we're moving on to the lat pull down, where I go significantly lighter compared to the weighted pull up. And if you notice, my chest is up, the scapula is kind of pulled back, and the goal is to keep everything a little bit tighter and more strict. Hits the lats just a little bit more compared to the weighted pull up. And so I'll go light with these, really accentuate the tempos. Now with the weighted pull down, I'm trying to keep my torso relatively stiff and stuck in one position, so there's not much swaying going back, so I'm not using momentum, just to make sure everything's tight. Now, just like the weighted pull up, we went to pull downs. Just like T-bar rows, we are going to dumbbell rows. I'm not really focused too much on the weight, I'm more focused on the feel, and it's more like my bodybuilding movement where I'm trying to get strict form. And I use straps on everything, by the way, just because I don't want my grip to be a limiting factor, which I think everyone should be using straps. Now for lat training and back training, I finish off with a lat pull over, a single grip lat pull over. And the goal is to just feel the lat stretch out. This is more for feel, more than really anything else. So now we're moving on to the bicep portion of the training. I am doing a short head training for this day, 2 accessories. I like to use ramp up sets for cables where I'm kind of like warming up until the weight starts to feel heavy. Then I'll start counting the sets. So I don't really count the sets prior to that. I want to make sure that I'm hitting the rep range, make sure that I'm hitting the right intensity to promote growth, and that I'm not getting sloppy with the form, so I don't choose a weight that's too heavy right off the bat. Don't worry about doing too many warm-ups when it comes to isolation movements because they tend to be less taxing on your body, and you're better off lifting the correct load that feels best for that intended session than to just jump really light or jump really heavy and then kind of not get the most out of your training. Because we're kind of going for that short head action, we are doing another isolation, a preacher curl on a bench setup. Yes, I know there's that one video that's disgusting out there, but just control the weight, don't ego lift, choose a weight with straight sets. You should not get snapped up, especially if you're doing something that exhausts you beforehand, like a isolation, unilateral, supinated curl. That's a lot to say. This is perfect because it kind of warms your bicep up so you don't feel like it's snapped up. So I'm looking pretty swollen this. I take off my shirt even though I'm in the middle of the gym. I feel like an absolute douchebag. But gotta get that thumbnail in, which is very important, of course. And it's crazy. I see my physique and I'm like, wow. All this was hiding under all that fat I accumulated from the bulk phase. Bulk phase, 100% recommend, just don't overdo it. And make sure to have a game plan when going to your cut. Work on your weak points. It's very important, especially as you start losing weight, that you have your weak points feeling like they're deteriorating even quicker. It's crazy how night and day my physique looks with a pump versus without a pump, especially that I'm losing body fat. Anyways, if you like this video, like, subscribe. See you later. Peace.